Hey, it's James from Hamilton Effects, and yeah, for today's video I'm going to check out and have a play with my Embers Fuzz, and we're going to try some different pedal board placements. I don't know if you know, but fuzzes, especially vintage fuzzes, can be pretty picky about where they like to work. They like to see a guitar's pickups to kind of respond dynamically to them, and obviously the Embers Fuzz is designed to be super dynamic. So yeah, I'm going to try it in a few different pedal board positions. You can hear the dog trotting around in the background there. But yeah, and see if we can get some interesting sounds out there. Obviously the positions that are after a buffered pedal, I'll show you what it sounds like without, but I'm going to use the companion to help it kind of react nicely and dynamically, but I'll explain more when we get there. So this is the board we've got so far, slightly different from last week's one, but we're at the moment coming straight into the Embers Fuzz. So that is where it is at its most happiest, if you like, and most classic. We've got the twin parallel, we've got this third dimension from TC, which is the TC version of the Dimension C from Boss. We've got my Nobels ODR-1, we've got the 8, and then we're going into the stomp, and then in the loop of the stomp, we go into the delay, where I have that dual delay I was running in the last video, and then we have a short kind of reverse room reverb. So that's kind of where we're at for clean sound. Let's just tune up. Got the strat in C# standard at the moment. that's the Embers Fuzz on its own. Then obviously, like, stacking fuzz at that kind of level can get huge. One thing that's really nice to do to a fuzz is to kind of round it off. So, well, let's go with the 8, shall we? Let's go with this kind of setting. So set, you know, not too gainy. Bit of gain, bit of roundness. Let's start with that kind of underdriven sound that we just had. It really kind of tames those edges. As I raise the input level, we're kind of getting closer to that full fuzz sound. Obviously that's super compressed, but I guess if you had a rhythm sound that was a Another way I'd stack using the Embers Fuzz would be to kind of use this as a different flavour for a lead part. So I've played songs where like you've got this kind of extreme bias sound. But maybe that's for like just a riff or like something, and you want to kind of have your overdrive sound on for the rest of the song. Let's start with this, shall we? There's a nice kind of thick overdrive sound. And then maybe, well, rather than the twin parallel, if we go for an overdrive sound using the ODR-1, let's go for a more kind of classic pop rock overdrive. It's kind of caving in. I think a few of them were like caving in, but like the more overdrive you put at this end, the more when you force it through, it's going to kind of, really kind of swamp the kind of low end and really squish the compression, if you like. In which case, we maybe could lower the volume and see if that can save it. So with the volume up. You'll notice that there's no real like actual volume change past a certain point. We're just kind of driving more like overdrive. I think if I was using those kind of sounds regularly, like stacked, I would change the internal switch on the Embers. There's a kind of bass cut switch that you can use to cut some bass. And yeah, I think I would use that more. At the moment, I don't, because I like the kind of the full thing. That was fun. That was nice. So what did I change? I pushed the gain up a bit high and pulled the bias back. When you have the kind of bias all the way down, it's super like woofy. Especially when you kick the gain like a bit low. The bias seems to kind of let more low mid kind of bloat through. Like when you really drive it, I guess you kind of lose some of that. And you can almost compensate that with kind of pushing more gain through, more top end kind of sizzle. But by kind of yeah, fun. The other thing that we've got on here is this bit of modulation. Obviously, having the kind of chorusy sound after a drive, it's always going to be more audible, kind of pushed through a lot more. But to me, that cuts off a ton of low end and kind of adds this sheen on the top that I don't really love. I think in an ideal world, I'd have that before, because I quite like, for example, if this was my main drive sound, so like if this was doing the fuzz job. Kind of character of the overdrive helps to shape and kind of tame the oddities of the chorus. Maybe if I was doing riff-based stuff, I would use this a bit more. as a kind of, yeah, when it's after, it's more obvious, isn't it? So yeah, you hear that sheen a little bit more. So on kind of high riffs like that, it's nicer, a little bit more audible. But okay, that's fuzz into everything else that's kind of here. Then I think what we'll do now is I'll shuffle it all along and I'll put the fuzz afterwards. And obviously we'll need the companion for that. So yeah, let's do some shuffling. Okay, so this is quite an unusual position to have your fuzz at the end as the kind of last drive in the chain. So let's see what it sounds like without the companion. Super harsh, brittle, kind of bias, sounds different. Yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible sound. Obviously, it's super noisy. Way noisier than it was before. And obviously, there's a place for all sorts of stuff. But the companion is built as a pickup simulator. So if you put it right before the Embers fuzz, it doesn't matter where in your chain it is. Oh, that is a tight squeeze there. Doesn't matter where it is in your chain, but it will help your fuzz to react a bit more normally. It won't be exactly the same because, yeah, fuzzers do really want to see your pickups ideally, but it does help. See how much less that noise is now. Kind of balance is back. So let's get a fuzz sound and an underdrive sound that we like. I think kind of I like gain about there. And then either bias here or for my kind of starved bias sound. We'll start with it up here. So to begin with, let's try boosting into the fuzz. This is a kind of 2 transistor fuzz, and the twin parallel has got 3 transistors in actually, but it kind of, the boost stage of each kind of side of the boost that you're blending between has 1 single transistor. So all the way to that end. I might tune again actually, but while I do that, yeah, so all the way to that end is a fairly clean boost. It's loud. I just turn the attenuation off because I want to boost into it and like act as another kind of boost. But yeah, so this is it as a clean boost. Could cut some of the treble. Which might actually be quite good going into the fuzz. So here we go. I really like that. You kind of retain the character from the fuzz, but you get more. Almost like in the same way that when you underdrive, you get a kind of cleaner stage. going there. But yeah, let's try blending in some of the biasy weirdness. So yeah, we've got that cleaner side underneath, which you can kind of hear the biasy, gritty side overlaid on top of it. You know, especially if you turn it down and you're not driving into the amp at all. Going into the amp kind of melds it all together, but yeah, like so undercutting the input gain of the amp. It's almost like more like what you would get from if you played it into a really high headroom amp, like a super reverb or something. You can kind of hear those two layers. Yeah, loving that combination, twin into the Embers. Man, maybe I'm going to be the guy with the fuzz pedal that's last in the show. He plays riffs like that. Anyway, yeah, fuzz after chorus. Don't know what that was. Because if you've got one modulation, why not have two? man, that feels like such a kind of multi-dimensional, almost as if it's got a third dimension in it. But yeah, I don't know, like feels like there's so many layers there when playing quietly. To be fair, that combination in that order is really nice. And then this is just giving it. I mean, that's amazing. That's with the underdriven sound, so here's just fuzz. Here's just what the Nobles was... I say just what the Nobles was doing, that's epic. And just to remind you, here's them together. You kind of lose some of that low end from the Nobles, but I don't know that you need it really. Yeah. Low end. Man, that is fun. On to this guy. Let's find a sound that we like. Oh man, we shouldn't have had that sound. I feel like everything else is going to be underwhelming in comparison. I I mean, that's pretty good, isn't it? Well, that's good on its own, to be fair. I need to change key. Man, that is fun. That is great fun. I have one more thing to try. People talk about using a fuzz and a wah and where to put it all the time. Because, yeah, both are fairly sensitive. So we're going to try both, wah into fuzz, and then fuzz into wah, and then we're going to try playing with the companion and see what we can get. But yeah, man, I think I'm happy with the Embers fuzz late in the chain. Going into this, I think I literally said, like, do you want to be the weird hipster guy with your fuzz, like, at the end of your pedal board? But man, does it sound great. Okay, so we've got the Hotone, Hot One, Hotone Soul Press wah set up, ready to go. Obviously, because we have the companion, there's less to worry about in terms of, do you have it before or after? So it's actually set up first in the chain at the moment. So yeah, this is what fuzz sounds like after a wah. Here's without the. I'm also it's gonna be very awkward, but. So much like we said with the other pedals, having it before the fuzz means the fuzz character is kind of the defining thing of it, right? It's last in the signal chain, and so that's the thing that kind of has the most coloration. Everything before that, including the wah, is obviously changing what's going into the fuzz, but because it's the last thing, it's like, I don't know, if you're making a burger, right? The things that are at the bottom are going to be closest to your tongue, I guess, so you taste it more. The things that are closest to the end of the signal chain make like a big amount of difference. Hard pressed and to say the most difference. But anyway, so yeah, going into the fuzz. I guess just for fun, let's take the companion out of the chain briefly and see what it does. Companion, completely passive device, so I don't need to worry about unplugging too many things. It's just so noisy. In general, so noisy. And yeah, I think it's just the same as before, right? It's no better, no worse, just different. Or no, well, in my opinion, it is worse actually, because it's so much noisier and it's not what the Embers is designed to be. But it is a different thing. Some people might like that and say, do what you want, basically. Now we're going to put it after the fuzz, and I'm going to bring the companion back in. I mean, obviously in the real world, I wouldn't do that kind of layout. But for proof of kind of concept, so there you go. Yeah, I don't think I would ever use wah after a fuzz, but you could do if you wanted to. Be interesting for certain things, maybe like for filter sweeping, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's going to come out this side before everything else, and then we'll keep using the companion there with the fuzz. So yeah, I don't know, some of you might have known all that stuff before, in terms of, you know, like signal chain order and that kind of thing. Yeah, creativity is always a legit choice as well. So as long as you have something like the companion, you can put your fuzz wherever you want and it still sound like I intended it to. Or you could go without the companion and just put up with the kind of extra noise, but for the different kind of flavors that you get from it. Same with the wah, right? You know, put it wherever you want, wherever you kind of like the sound of it. But yeah, I think I'm going to have mine at the beginning of the signal chain. Kind of classic wah position, but then interesting fuzz position is kind of where I've ended up from the rest of that video. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, for checking out HamiltonEffects.com, for buying pedals, for following me on Instagram and TikTok as well. And yeah, I will see you all soon.